Joe Biden releases a statement telling us what Sunday was. But it wasn't quite the statement that most people expected a devout Catholic who has made that a part of his personality to bring us. So we'll talk about that, some of the backlash that went along with that, and where we go with that. In other Easter news, 3 Palestinian demonstrators are charged after charging a Holy Saturday Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral. So we'll go over what that means, what happened with that, where we go with that, and what's happening there. Donald Trump posts his $175 million bond as he gets slapped with a gag order over, well, I'm going to say talking about what's actually happening, but we'll talk about that. I'll let you formulate your own opinions, and I will tell you what actually is happening over that. And Israel is accused of a deadly airstrike in Iran that happens to take out a high-ranking ISIS general. We'll talk about what's happening with that, what's happening with the optics war, and where we go with that. It is going to be all of this and more. And happy Easter to all of you. He is risen to forgive all of your sins. I hope you believe in him, so he will. And if you leave me, I won't miss you. And I won't ever take you back. Live chat your memory won't ever haunt me, because I don't love you. And now, if you buy that, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a lot to go over here. A lot more than I thought we were going to have to go over today. I will tell you that right off the bat. I didn't think I was going to have this much news here. A lot of it breaking just today. So we'll go over that. Yesterday being an actual somewhat slow news day, which thankfully we need that. And really over the week, because we were back here on Friday. And we covered up some new stuff with that too. But we do have a bunch to go over here today, so strap yourselves in, find some friends, tell a bunch of people here, because this channel only grows by word of mouth. And I may be looking into recommendations for new headphones, because this is my second pair of this particular headphone in a year. Now, this part here, very comfortable. This part over here, the most comfortable headphones I have ever owned. I put these headphones on one night and was wearing them to play Fallout. I was doing a marathon session of Fallout 3. And I didn't sit down to do a marathon session. I sat down to play for an hour and then just get up and do something else. And my ears started to hurt. And I looked up and I said, man, I maybe shouldn't have got these headphones. This was the first pair, not this pair. I shouldn't have got these headphones because, I mean, imagine a headphone not being comfortable after, and then I looked at the clock and I said 6.5 hours, and I was sold on them for that part, but just this part of the headphone up in the bridge keeps breaking on me. So I'll be looking for something else, hopefully something, maybe, because they're cheap headphones and I can afford a little bit better now, so maybe it will be time to upgrade. I mean, if they do always fall apart, I have my other set of wireless headphones that are also hooked into the computer onto the Bluetooth, because that's what I wore when I did the Razor Fist Halloween costume underneath my hair, so you guys couldn't see it. But yeah, I'll be in the market for a new pair of those. Unfortunately, like I said, I like these headphones, I do, but I can't. Okay, for $20, I can keep replacing them once a year, but I'd like to have something that's going to last me a little bit longer. But that is enough about what's going on over here. We've got a lot of news to go over here today. For the fact that, again, I thought this was going to be a very slow news day, so let's get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as The Daily Ignoramus and Overruled with KTZed, two very close and personal friends of mine, people I would recommend you hang out with at any time, at any given situation. I always recommend you go check those people out, so make sure you guys go and do that. And by the way, if you are looking for Friday's episode of the video of Contemporary, it's still pending on YouTube. Because I was going to get up on Saturday morning before work and post it. I had started uploading it the night before, like I always do, because I always re-upload the video. I set the old video, the live stream, to private, re-upload the video, and then what I do is I get up in the morning and I hit the publish button and do the announcement thing. But yeah, it's actually still sitting there. I found that today when I got here, but I thought to myself, well, we'll put that up here after the live stream and we'll get up for that. If you are looking for that. If you are looking for the audio platform, you could have already listened to that on Spotify, which, by the way, a reminder, I will have to send a message out to my friend Sully Blue, because, you know, he's with his kid in the evening and can't watch with us at the time, but I know he does something with trucking. I'm not going to say much more than that, and he could probably benefit from the audio platform off that. So I'll bring that up to him. I'll text him after this. But again, that's enough about the wares here. We got to get into it, because we got a lot to go over here today. Thank you to the Mogwai. Thank you Into for coming in here and checking us out and live chatting with us today. Have you tried to freeze your head so it's smaller? I have been trying to do that every winter since I was born, living in Wisconsin, where it is cold. We had a blizzard today, just so you know. It is cold in my state. The Mogwai says, Mark Safe from Christian Symbol says, part of my Easter celebration, make sure you are aware of transgenders. I am aware of them. I have friends who are transgendered. I like them very much. I don't have any issue with them. I probably wouldn't go out with one, but, well, it's not probably. I know I wouldn't go out with one, but I have no issue with hanging out with them. Into is here. Hi, Jay. Hi, Into. All right, let's get into it. Let's get started. We're actually going to start with a little bit of breaking news from this last night, actually. I thought it was this morning, but it was... Actually, I think it might have been from Sunday. I just found out about it today. Part of famed California highway crumbles into the ocean. It couldn't take the rest of the state with it, but hey, a part of California has crumbled into the ocean. And it just happened to be where people were driving. From Sarah Smart over at CNN. Part of a roadway on California's Big Sur coast crumbled into the ocean over the weekend after part of a cliff gave way in what officials are calling a slip-out. A portion of Highway 1 remained closed, according to a Sunday Evening Post from Caltrans District 5. All Big Sur state parks in the affected area are closed until further notice, according to a notice posted by California Department of Parks and Recreation. Essential travelers in the area will be led by convoy through the closed area, according to a Caltrans District 5. The convoy will be in place for the next several days as crews work to fix and stabilize the roadway, according to the Monterey County Sheriff's Office. NWS San Francisco Bay Area said the landslide on the rock took place around 1600 hours local time on Saturday. That is 1800 hours or 6 p.m. if you're in a normal time zone. Park closures include the Pfeiffer Big Sur State Park, Andrew Molera State Park, Lamekiln State Park, Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park, and Point Sur State Historic Park, according to a release from the California State Parks. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 5 places I will never set foot in my life. The Mogwai says, I had a slip out last night. She left unsatisfied. F in the chat for the Mogwai. But yeah, you could see, and it didn't take the whole road out, so because there were a lot of people who were stranded on the other side of that. I looked a bit at the map. I couldn't see exactly where this was when I was looking into this earlier. Let's grab a map here. Maps. Not the kind that Joe Biden likes. So, Big Sur. This is one of the parks that was affected. But this is Highway 1 that runs along this area here. But I don't know where it is that they had it shut down. But I mean, this is just evidence of man's arrogance. We will build, whether it's safe or not. And it is, like we saw in the CNN picture, it is right on the edge. But I was driving on roads like that yesterday. They just weren't main roads. South of Rocky Creek Bridge, they say. Dolan, Big Creek, Vincent Creek, Lime Kiln. Hey, maybe we'll see it. Big Creek, Vincente Creek, Dolan Creek. Maybe not. I'm starting to see some of them were saying temporarily closed. Oh, right there. That's where it is. So it's just south of there. And yeah, it looks like a lot of this is temporarily closed because of it. They're the parks that we were seeing. So it doesn't look like anybody was washed out to sea with the washout. But it looks like a lot of people were stranded from this. From ABC 7 News, isolated travelers escorted past Big Sur Highway 1 road collapse as state parks remain closed. From J.R. Stone, this is from ABC 7 out of San Francisco. A landslide along Highway 1 near Big Sur caused major problems this past weekend, and now officials are telling out-of-towners to stay home. Can I say that to Californians? Well, there's one that I would invite over, but for the most part, can I just say that to all Californians? Yes? Maybe? No? Do I get to do that? According to California Highway Patrol this weekend, between 1,600 and 2,000 people were stuck in Big Sur after the slide. Caltrans District 5 says convoys to start through Rocky Creek closure on Highway 1 at 12 p.m. today. Convoy to lead vehicles first in the north and then in south direction will repeat at 4 p.m. today. Starting tomorrow, convoys will happen at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Please avoid all unnecessary travel in that area. I'm not going to lie, no matter where I would be in California, I'd be scared shitless to drive on that road, wondering when the rest of it would wash out. Viewer video shows the damaged area on Highway 1 near the Rocky Creek Bridge in Monterey County. In that video, you see a section of the southbound lane going into Big Sur is now missing after it slid down the cliff on Saturday afternoon. No one was hurt, but Caltrans immediately closed the highway, meaning no one in and no one out. I'm like, holy crap, does she actually talk like that? I gotta put on the Valley Boys for that one. I'm like, oh my gosh, are we gonna be stuck here for weeks? What is happening? This is not planned, said Linda Molinari of Hollister. I had to. There was no way I could get around that one. Molinari was with her boyfriend. They made a last-minute decision to go have lunch in Big Sur and ended up having to stay the night in their camper on Saturday night. Oh, what a shame. They estimate this slide happened about 30 minutes after they drove along this lane. So it's crazy to me to even think about, like, so many people are messaging me and like, why don't you just go south and go around that road that goes over the hill? And I'm like, because one is closed south also, and like that part slid away months ago, so there's literally no road that goes through the mountain to get to 101 or anything. Like, that's the only way, said Molinari. Holy crap, I made my own brain hurt. Caltrans said that while they do monitor all of Highway 1, they hadn't been specifically eyeing this area. We will try to immediately stabilize that edge and design a repair to make a structural fix at that location, said Kevin Drabinski of Caltrans District 5. Big Sur is not the place to go, right, said Nick Pasculi, Communications Director of Monterey County. We are encouraging people to stay away from that area, said a Monterey County Sheriff's Commander. So, that is what they have for that. And a brief one here from the Associated Press. Motorists creep along one lane after part of California's iconic Highway 1 collapses. Motorists crept along one lane of a scenic stretch of California's iconic Highway 1 on Monday after a giant chunk of it collapsed in the ocean. Convoys of vehicles resumed at 8 a.m. Monday for the one lane of highway, although most of the people trapped at Big Sur were allowed to leave when a single lane was reopened Sunday after being closed overnight, said Kevin Travinsky, a spokesperson for the California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans. Kirk Gaffel, the manager of the Nepenthe restaurant in Big Sur, said about a dozen of his employees who were working that day were trapped in town and had to find friends or family members to spend the night with. It's probably true for every business in Big Sur, he said. Big Sur Lodge opened its conference room to offer some trapped motorists a place to stay while others spent the night in their vehicles. Why did they have to open the conference room? Why didn't they just open the hotel? Oh, we got the Mogwai's attention. It was the dark of the moon on the 6th of June in a Kenworth pulling logs. Does Goodyear make a tire that deals with washouts? No, they do not. So, that is, and we got the road closure. A more panned out chunk of what's missing there. Man, I would not. Well, I wouldn't be welcome in California anyway, but man, I would just not. There's no way. Especially when California is the one that's making the decisions out there. Good God. But if you're to Big Sur, well, I hope you like the little town there. Alright, for the title card today, from CNN, Republicans slam Biden for proclaiming Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter, though it's yearly observed on March 31st. I love the fact that they do this too, and that's the reason that I led with CNN on this, because the story is not, when you're looking at mainstream media, it is not Biden makes a gaffe, and he makes a big announcement about Transgender Day of Visibility. It's Republicans pounce! You know how much your ass would pucker going over that? Dude, wouldn't even bother me. I can tell you that right now. Come to Wisconsin sometime. I will take you up some roads that will scare the crap out of you, especially when I'm driving. And if I have something low slung at the time, I will really scare you. I take it a little bit easier in my truck because it's a higher center of gravity and it's got a bigger rollover risk, but you put me in a 78 Firebird with the right suspension, and I will scare the crap out of you going up those roads. I know, because I did to most everybody that knows me. From Samantha Waldenberg. Republicans are taking aim at President Biden for proclaiming Easter Sunday as the Transgender Day of Visibility, though the 2 days only coincided this year by chance. The Transgender Day of Visibility, which was started in 2009 as a day of awareness to celebrate the successes of transgender and gender nonconforming people, is held annually on March 31st, the date of Easter. Meanwhile, changes from year to year. But several Republicans seized on Biden's proclamation to attack the president. It is appalling and insulting that Joe Biden's White House formally proclaimed Easter Sunday as Trans Day of Visibility, former President Trump's campaign said in a statement. Speaker Johnson said the Biden admin had betrayed the central tenet for Easter in a post on X. The American people are taking note. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates said in a statement, as a Christian who celebrates Easter with family, President Biden stands for bringing people together and upholding the dignity and freedoms of every American. Sadly, it's unsurprising politicians are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel and hateful and dishonest rhetoric. President Biden will never abuse his faith for political purposes or for profit, Bates said. Bullshit! That's like his entire career in the Senate is abusing his faith. I know that you hate what it is that I did, but I get a pass because I'm Catholic. That's like all 40 years he was in the Senate. I just get a pass because I'm Catholic. Biden being Catholic is like his own personal hole in the sheet. In this year's presidential proclamation, Biden said the Transgender Day of Visibility honors the extraordinary courage and contributions of transgender Americans. Transgender Americans, man, the part of the fabric of our nation, the proclamation said, adding that they deserve and are entitled to the same rights and freedoms as every other American, including the fundamental freedom to be their true selves. While touting his admin's work to advance the transgender rights, such as lifting the transgender military ban, the president slammed Republican-led efforts to curb protections for trans Americans, describing them as bullying and discrimination. Responding to Johnson's statement on X that holding the Transgender Day of Visibility on Easter is abhorrent, Raphael Warnock, another person abusing his religion for the sake of politics, said Sunday, apparently the speaker finds trans people abhorrent, and I think he ought to think about that. Too easy. I can't do that one on Twitch. Mogwai, I'm sorry, I can't. That one I can't read. I know that will hit the algos and the machine learning, and they will say bye-bye affiliate. Warnock, the senior pastor of Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church. He's a Baptist on top of it, by the way. Told CNN's Dana Bash on State of Disunion that Republican response remarks, just one more instance of folks who do not know how to lead us, trying to divide us. Pot kettle. Raphael Warnock. This is the opposite of the Christian faith, Warnock continued. In a moment like this, we need voices, particularly voices of faith, who would use our faith not as a weapon to beat other people down, but as a bridge to bring us all together. All right, I want to talk about this for just a moment, because even I was taken in by the idea that this was just proclaimed for the first time this past Sunday. Well, technically this past Saturday. So, I did some research, and people were dawning to this about the same time. So, the Transgender Day of Visibility is about a 15-year-old celebration. Placed in the spring, and I believe it has passed in the 15 years, the March 31st coincidence as well. The March 31st Easter coincidence. Which, that in and of itself, actually makes me question whether or not it was put there deliberately so it would occasionally pass with Easter. So we could get something cooking in the mainstream media. A Republicans pounce moment, if you will. As far as I know, and Biden has made this proclamation on March 31st every year, and he did make a small somewhat meaningless mention of Easter this year as well, but it wasn't as highly publicized as Trans Day of Visibility. And when I look at something like this is where I distrust the news media, and this is where I distrust the algorithms on X, even though I continue to use X and I don't pay for it. And where I've considered paying for it, I get stopped when I realize things like this. This story, from everything that I can tell from looking at the trending and everything else, and the way that the algos work on X especially, was pushed to the top while Biden's Easter message was probably algorithmically demoted, because they are looking for the fight. They are looking for the Republicans' pounce. Clint Russell of Liberty Lockpod, who has been on the old show twice, I think. Was Clint on once or twice? I don't remember. But he brought up an interesting point that a lot of this was being promoted, I think, to try to push somebody to make a violent threat or take a shot or do something that would be untoward. And definitely not in the vein of the president saying something tremendously stupid, especially with this president. I think this was artificially pushed and inflated to try to get the reaction. I really do. And the mainstream media knows how to go back out and artificially inflame things to go get reaction. So does X. I mean, my experience with X has always been, it's never people that I follow. I rarely see people that I follow. There are a couple. But I very, very rarely see people that I follow on X. Rather, I get a wall of Biden babies and DeSantis bros. For a while, I didn't even know that there was still MAGA on Twitter because I've never seen them. Just not even the random accounts that get spammed in, but I know that a lot of both DeSantis bros and the Biden babies get a pretty much wall-to-wall feed of MAGA, but they're not afraid to block people. Like me, I have been very, very adamant about maintaining my never block anybody position. So that's part of the reason I see some of these people. I have muted a few of them just because it is insane how many people. The only people that I've blocked on Twitter are people who put me on a list, and that's a soft block, which means I immediately go back and unblock them. It's just long enough to get me off the list that they put me on. Because when socialists start making lists, our nation starts to go to hell. And then there was an experiment going around that you could not block Barack Obama's account. And sure enough, at the time, you couldn't, but when people started calling attention to it, X started doing, oopsie, oh no, you can definitely block him. And then, because I'd hit the on and off button so many times on Obama, and lost track of how many times I did, then when they did fix it, he was blocked from me, so I went back and unblocked him. I have nobody blocked on X. But going back to my original point, yeah, this is the kind of thing, and this is part of the reason that X does the way that it does, and tries to get people on and do the pay the $8, and they thrive on engagement farming, even if it is somebody who is not paying in. If you get in there and you see that outrage post, that post that just pisses you off so much, even if you don't follow that person, you are going to be more inclined to comment and go back through and read the other people's comments. And I think that's what this was. CNN got a bunch of X's and sound bites, and X got a massive number of uploads and engagement. And I'm sure YouTube got a lot of stuff on there that generated a lot of views and revenue as well. But yeah, Biden has done this for every year of his presidency. He's made an announcement on Trans Day of Visibility, and he has made a Happy Easter post, although again, highly downplayed, every year of his presidency. And he did both of those this year as well, but only one of those two got talked about. The Mogul says, where can we find some of them transgender trying to be visible? asking for a senator friend of mine, not naming names. I'd be confused on how that would work with the senator friend that you're talking about. Because that senator clearly likes little boys. I mean boys. Oops, did I say that out loud? But anyway, that's what I see from this. And the MAGA people, the Republicans, fall into the trap every single time. 100% of the time. Oops. I didn't archive that one. And that one wasn't previously archived. Let's see if I can get past the ad blocker. Your ad blocker's on. We can't show you ads. It's the most fucking ridiculous thing off there. There we go. Trump camp and White House clash over Biden's recognition of Transgender Day of Visibility. From the Associated Press. President Brandon is facing criticism from Trump's campaign and religious conservatives for proclaiming March 31st, which corresponds to Easter Sunday this year, as Transsexual Day of Visibility. The Democratic president issued the proclamation on Friday calling on all Americans to join us in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout the nation and to go to work towards eliminating violence and discrimination based on gender identity. But in 2024, the March 31st designation overlaps with Easter, one of Christianity's holiest celebrations. Trump's campaign accused Biden, a Roman Catholic, of being insensitive to religion. He is a Reformed Catholic, by the way, not a Roman Catholic. Our friend Vong, who you may see in or out of here today, is a Roman Catholic. Just ask him, he'll tell you. We all call on Joe Biden's failing campaign and White House to issue an apology to the millions of Catholics and Christians across America who believe tomorrow is, for one celebration only, the resurrection of Christ, said Carolyn Levitt, the Trump campaign's press secretary. She assailed what she called the Biden admin's years-long assault on the Christian faith. That's semi-accurate, by the way. Speaker Johnson said on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the Biden White House has betrayed the central tenet of Easter and called the decision outrageous and abhorrent. White House spokesperson Bates said the Republicans criticizing Biden are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, and dishonest rhetoric. Not anywhere close to what comes out of the White House, though. Yeah, Biden issued a proclamation on Trans Visibility Day in 2021. The advocacy group GLAAD said in a statement that people can both celebrate Easter and show their support for the trans community. The date of Easter moves each year, while the Trans Day of Visibility is always recognized on March 31st, but this year, right-wing politicians and talking heads are using the coincidental timing to overshadow the hope and joy that Easter represents, said Sarah Kate Ellis, GLAAD president and CEO, somebody who probably has never experienced the hope and joy that Easter represents. But the funniest part is Biden didn't even know that he did it, apparently. Which actually doesn't surprise me because, well, he doesn't know what he's saying 3/4 of the time anyway. From Fox News, Biden says he didn't do that when asked about Easter being a Trans Visibility Day, despite proclamation. From Thomas Catenacci, Biden said Monday he didn't do that when asked about his official White House proclamation declaring March 31st, the same day as Easter this year, as Transgender Day of Visibility. In an exchange with reporters at the annual White House Easter egg roll, Biden declined the responsibility for the proclamation when asked about House Speaker Mike Johnson's criticism of the action. Over the weekend, Johnson wrote in a post on X, formerly Twitter, that the White House betrayed the central tenet of Easter, adding the proclamation was outrageous and abhorrent. Hey man, he's thoroughly uninformed. I didn't do that, which is the opposite of the sticker that we have in in the Discord. Do I have that on the Twitch side too, by the way? I don't remember if I have I did that sticker over there. Silver Maple has joined us over on the Twitch side. Now I'm curious. Do I have that on the Twitch side? I do. Yes, I do. I did that. In a statement to Fox News Digital, a spokesperson of the White House downplayed the president's comments, noting that he didn't choose March 31st as the date for Transgender Day of Visibility. Since 2021, when Biden took office, the White House has issued the same proclamation on March 31st every year. But see, the thing is he probably didn't do that. He has no idea. He can barely put his own pants on. But that's what they have for that. We have got Wilton Cardinal Gregory, Washington Archbishop, on President Biden. In response to this, I would say he's very sincere about his faith, but like a number of Catholics, he picks and chooses dimensions of the faith to highlight while ignoring or even contradicting other parts. There is a phrase that we've used in the past, a cafeteria Catholic. You choose which is attractive and dismiss that which is challenging. That sounds like any Washington politician. But let's listen.
In the case of the president, do you get a sense that his regular attendance and adherence to the faith resonates with American Catholics?
I would say that he's very sincere about his faith. But like a number of Catholics, he picks and chooses dimensions of the faith to highlight while ignoring or even contradicting other parts. There is a phrase that we have used in the past, a cafeteria Catholic. You choose that which is attractive and dismiss that which is challenging.
Or, as Thomas Aquinas would say, you allow your conscience to guide you. Right?
Is there something on the menu he's not ordering, in your view?
Well,
so to speak?
I would say there are things, especially in terms of the life issues, there are things that he chooses to ignore, or he uses the current situation as a political pawn rather than saying, look, my church believes this.
I think that's a lot of politicians on both the right and the left, honestly, especially given the fact, like, our friends on the right have passed numerous laws, spending bills, and budgets doing military action in the Middle East, but so have the Democrats. But a lot of Democrats, like Warnock is an example of one, who will come out and proclaim how wonderful abortion is while being a minister of a Baptist church. And of course, Pelosi and Biden themselves being fully in favor of homosexual marriage and abortion while still taking the sacrament. Although there was a point where Pelosi was stopped, which I found hilarious. Dual Helix says, I guess I better stick to Rumble. Oh, we're going to get some spice today, boys. So, Dual Helix and Silver Maple are the same person. Just so we're all aware. I knew that already, but yeah, just so we're all aware, those two are the same person, and that means the spice is going to get turned up, and you're going to hear the words, I can't read that on YouTube, for the remainder of the night. All right, we got to keep going. This one. We've got one from our friends over at NPR who've told us the Trans Day of Visibility began 15 years ago. The founder is still moved by its success. Juliana Kim and Jonathan Franklin contributed to this article. And remember, before you do anything, you have to hit that donate button because NPR is only 10% government funded, and Juliana Kim and Jonathan Franklin need your support and your money, I mean our money, comrade, to continue to tell you that transgender is the only religious tenet that you should have. So, hit that donate button because NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is they have to say. So, when I first saw a picture of that he-she thing, I was not trying to be mean when I saw this and observed this. Before I read the caption on the picture, because it was on an X, I legitimately thought it was Danny DeVito back in the penguin makeup and outfit. Like, I wasn't trying to be mean when I said that. But that's what I thought that it was. This Sunday, people from Kosovo to the Netherlands to the US are organizing events celebrating the transgender and non-binary community, marking the 15th year of International Transgender Visibility Day. Its founder, Rachel Crandall Crocker, a psychotherapist and a psycho, and the executive director of the nonprofit advocacy group Transgender Michigan, still can't believe it. "It's really amazing how far it's come," she told NPR. "I wasn't expecting to start an international movement." More than 1.6 million people. Oh, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. More than 1.6 million people in the U.S. identify as transsexual, according to a 2022 study from the Williams Institute, a research center at UCLA's law school. And most of them are preteen and teen. For odd reasons and coincidences we probably can't say on YouTube. This weekend's celebrations come as trans people's rights have become increasingly restricted across the U.S. in recent years. Several states have passed bills restricting or banning gender-affirming care for trans youth, and there's always been a wave of legislation against trans athletes and drag queen performers. I like the one too, where people are coming off with and they're saying, trans rights are human rights. Which, if you reverse that, I actually agree with. Human rights are trans rights. You are bestowed upon our Creator certain unalienable rights, such among them as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness or property, depending which document you're reading. I do not deny those to any transgender person. Even if you want to go and take the little whack or the wax, as long as it's not a public subsidized surgery, yeah, you can go do that if you want. I think it's tremendously stupid. But if you think that's what's going to make you happy and you are of the age of reason, and that's the other problem I have, is trying to voice this on kids, you go make the best damn tranny you possibly can. I will drive you to your appointment. I will not go in with you because I faint at the sight of blood. But you be the best darn transgender person you can be. I'm probably not going to use your new name if I knew you before. But again, for the most part, I don't care. So it made KTZed surprised at how liberal I am. I don't care what other people do in the privacy of their own home, as long as I don't have to pay for it. The Mogwai says she sounds like one of Marge's sisters hating Homer. I'm still trying to figure out how killing one gorilla got us here. I don't know. But if I get a time machine, that's what I'm going to go back and stop. Alright. That's what we have for that. But other Easter news. Friend of the show, Kristen, Special K, over on X, gives us video. Let's back this up here for just a sec. Pro-Palestinian protesters disrupt Easter service at St. Patrick's Cathedral, New York. Yeah, they're booking for him. And that pipe organ is no joke either. That'll drown anything out. Alright, so Dual Helix says the white shirt dude was like, fuck around and find out. The Mogwai says, don't go into the sanctuary and start stuff. If you want to protest, do it outside. I would feel that way no matter what the religion. You remember, what was it? They were saying that, what was it they were trying to protest? There was supposed to be, I think it was anti-abortion protests, or abortion protests, where they were threatening to go do that at the fall of Roe versus Wade at the Catholic churches. I was like on Mother's Day too. They were threatening to go in on Mother's Day and start interrupting and assaulting people. All right, what do we have for this one here from NBC News 4 out of New York? Gaza ceasefire protesters arrested, disrupting Easter Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral. From Brian Price. 3 protesters were taken into custody late Saturday for disrupting Easter Vigil Mass at Manhattan's St. Patrick's Cathedral, police said. The 8 p.m. service, conducted by Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Why do I know that name? I'm not Catholic. It wouldn't be because of that. Why do I know that name? Was interrupted roughly 45 minutes after its start when 3 protesters approached the altar with a large white banner that read, "Silence equals death." Video shared by Extinction Rebellion, New York City, showed the trio quickly escorted from the church. Seconds after unfurling the banner, Free Palestine chants could also be heard. The 3 men, 2 in their 30s and 1 in his 60s, were arrested by police on charges of disrupting a religious service, the NYPD confirmed on Sunday. War, occupation, and industrial pollution are poisoning our soil, air, and water in Gaza, and all over the planet, destroying the Earth's capacity to sustain life, said Gregory Schwidak, one of the XR-NYC Palestinian Solidarity activists arrested Saturday. The group of activists released a statement following the protest action calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. So, yep, they went to jail. Bye-bye. Again, like Mogwai said, if you want to protest, that's fine, but especially around here. Now, in New York, at a Latin Mass, I don't know how much of a threat could actually happen, but if you come into a Wells church here, especially on this side of the state where most of the people in town are relocated good old country boys, you're going to find out really quick. And you're not going to like what you find. I'll tell you that. The Mogwai says, silence equals death. Apparently you've eaten Easter dinner after my uncle's gotten into the deviled eggs. The deviled eggs do that to you, by the way? I can't eat mayo. So, well, I've had a deviled egg, and I was really, really young. That's actually what I was eating when I found out that I can't eat mayonnaise. So, do deviled eggs do that to you? I don't know. I've never had one. Well, I've not had one since I was about 4. Alright. What else do we have? Some bridge news. But not the Baltimore Bridge. From Fox News, barge strikes bridge in Oklahoma, halting highway traffic. From Sarah Rump Witten. Yeah, see, they don't do that to me. Thankfully. Because there are a lot of eggs that get eaten in this house. A lot. I was keto for like 5 years. There are a lot of eggs that get eaten in this house. It's like one of your staple foods if you're keto. A large barge hit a bridge over the Arkansas River in Oklahoma, prompting a nearby major highway to temporarily close on Saturday, the Highway Patrol said. According to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, the barge rammed into the bridge near the Care Lock and Dam on Saturday afternoon. I didn't know they had locks and dams on that river. Troopers closed South U.S. Highway 59 about 1:25 p.m. after receiving word of the incident and diverted traffic from the area. State Patrol spokesperson Sarah Stewart said. There were no reports of injuries on the highway or the barge, Stewart said. Thinking, for the most part, an accident on this one. Oh, that's archived. I can't scroll that. It was not immediately known what caused the barge to hit the bridge. The Oklahoma Department of Transportation later posted on X the highway had reopened after engineers inspected the bridge, so just kind of a open and shut. It's over. A family out fishing captures the video of the barge hitting the Oklahoma Bridge. From Dylan Brown. There's your video. There's the barge. There's the bridge. It's fun. And I know that because, number one, it's shorter. And number two, there's... Well, a barge is smaller than the container ship that hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge as well, but I know we go into such a huge panic about, rightfully so, the container ship taking down a full bridge within seconds. And thankfully no people were on it except for the construction crew, but no cars. Meanwhile, a barge in the Arkansas River goes and bumps into the bridge over there, and the bridge is just like, huh, yeah, what? A family out fishing in the Arkansas River on Oklahoma on Saturday afternoon caught the moments a massive barge crashed into a busy highway bridge, shutting it down for hours. I looked over at my dad and I asked if he was going to hit the bridge, and he was like, I don't think so, said Dayton Holland. The crash happened at the Arkansas River near Sallisaw, the bridge on US 59, a busy roadway on Saturday afternoon. There were cars driving everywhere on the road above, said Holland. Yeah, again, imagine that. Now, you don't have to imagine the fear of being on the bridge that's toppled over, but, you're, what, 6 days out from when the Francis Scott Key Bridge tipped over, and then you're just driving on a busy highway bridge and you see the barge coming forward and you feel it comes to the bridge. That's probably got to scare the crap out of you. And not in the way that the Mogwai eggs do, apparently. The video, which has gone viral, sparked thousands of views. Holland said she couldn't believe what she saw. He looked back just before it hit, and he's like, yes it is, she said. But nobody was hurt, and that one is back open. All right, back to political news. From Fox Business. The bond has been filed. Trump files a $175 million appeal bond. Chairman of the company says it was an easy decision to underwrite. Because, of course, the mainstream media had to go back and dox the person who underwrote the bond. From Lydia Hugh. Former President Trump posted a $175 million bond in the New York civil fraud case Monday after a state appeals court decided last week to reduce the amount required from $454 million. The bond protects Trump's assets from seizure by New York Attorney General Letitia James, while he appeals Judge Arthur Engoron's decision to find him liable for fraud. Trump obtained the bond from Knight Specialty Insurance Company, whose chairman Don Hankey said negotiations including accepting combinations of cash and investment-grade bonds from Trump as collateral. Trump ultimately posted all cash for the appeal bond, Hankey said. It's a big bond for us to underwrite, but Trump came up with all the cash, so at the end, it was an easy decision with almost no risk, said Hankey. Trump's lawyers previously told the court that Trump did not have the cash to secure a bond for the full amount of the judgment, adding that nearly 30 insurance companies declined to underwrite a bond for the former president. According to Hankey, Knight Specialty contacted Trump's representatives to offer assistance before bond to $175 million. We would do it for everybody, but I saw a need here and I'm happy to do it, he said. And yes, he got doxxed for this. Hankey says he and his family members have donated to Trump in the past. He's not spoken with the former president, but he'd welcome a conversation. The Mogwai says, I was really hoping Dog would help post the bond. That would be interesting. I respect the fact he's had to step back from business and donate his time to running the country. I'm sure his net worth has taken a big drop in the last, 4 or 5 years. With everything he's been doing for the country, Hankey said, I'd like to thank him for that. Last month, insurance company Chubb posted a nearly $92 billion appeal bond for Trump in the federal defamation case involving E. Jean Carroll. After investor concern, Chubb CEO Evan Greenberg was forced to defend issuing the bond in a March 13th letter to investors. Again, because he got doxxed for this, because you don't usually know who the bond company is. But they got doxxed for putting up the money so that the investors would go back and flee the company. We don't take sides, Greenberg wrote. I realize fully how polarizing and emotional this case and the defendant are, and how easy it would be for Chubb to just say no. However, we support the rule of law and our role in it. We consider this the right thing to do, and we frankly left our own personal feelings aside. Hankey also worries about criticism. I wish politics weren't involved in this, he said. I think I'm doing the right thing. Which again, this is a person who's going to get doxxed. In fact, the mainstream media did so already. I will be selective in what I read from this. But we will read that in just a moment. But CNN has to fact check the fact checker. Trump falsely claims again that he had to post bond to appeal civil fraud decision. That's what the judge said. That's not a falsity. Well, it's probably a falsity that he had to, but the judge said he had to. Former President Trump has falsely claimed again that he had to post a bond in order to appeal a $454 million civil fraud judgment against him, and falsely claimed again that Arthur Engoron did something unusual in forcing him to post a bond during the special appeal process. On Tuesday, the morning after Trump posted the $175 million bond necessary to prevent AG from beginning to collect on Engoron's judgment, the presumptive nominee wrote on social media, "I had to pay New York State in order to appeal a corrupt decision by a biased, crooked, and highly overturned judge. It's supposed to be the other way around. You appeal before you pay. Is a crooked New York judge allowed to make you pay for the privilege of appealing a wrongful and corrupt decision? Not in America." Trump made similar claims in March, claiming, for example, that Engoron wants me to put up the ridiculous fine. I did nothing wrong before I get a chance to appeal this crazed ruling. Up first. Trump's claims are comprehensively untrue. He was not required to post a bond in order to appeal the ruling. He began the appeal process in February, more than a month before posting the bond. And the requirement he actually faced to post a bond to prevent collection during the appeal process was not a first, or some unusual requirement created by Engoron. In fact, the requirement is set by New York state law, and it's regularly applied in civil cases in the state. This is literally the way the New York rules of court are designed to work, and actually work every day. Mitchell Epner, a former prosecutor who is now a litigator in private practice in New York, told CNN in March. He said at the time, the rules being applied to Trump are applied every day in New York courts on verdicts of all sizes. Though the size of the judgment against Trump was notably large, Epner added, Trump is either horribly misinformed or lying. There's no evidence for Trump's repeated claims that Engoron is crooked or corrupt. Well, except for the fact that he is being crooked and corrupt. But CNN has to come in and jump in with that. Now for the docs. Who is Don Hankey, the billionaire whose insurance firm provided Trump a $175 million bond payment? From Amy Peachy, I'll be a little bit selective with this one, because I'm sure they are putting out a lot of personal details here. Former President Trump and his co-defendants in his New York civil fraud case on Monday posted a bond of $175 million, following a judge's ruling that they had for years misrepresented the value of his properties. The bond is underwritten by an insurance company run by a billionaire who got to start making high-risk, high-interest loans to car buyers with poor credit. Don Hankey, the executive whose company provided the bond, is a little-known mogul who built his $7.4 billion fortune through car dealerships providing subprime auto loans. According to Forbes magazine, that makes him richer than Trump, whom Forbes estimates worth $6.4 billion, including his multi-billion-dollar stake in the newly public Trump media and technology firm. Hankey, who told the Associated Press he's never met nor spoken with Trump, said his Knight Specialty Insurance Company provided both cash and bonds as collateral for Trump's appellate bond. The bond is now essentially a placeholder that will guarantee payment if the judgment against Trump is upheld on appeal. This is what we do here at Knight Insurance. We're happy to do this for anyone who needs a bond, Hankey told the Wire service. Hankey got his start in the auto industry, who's 80 years old, by the way, when his father bought stake at a Ford dealership in LA in 1958. At the a teenager at the time, Hankey started out washing cars during the summer, but later stepped into a salesman role, he told the LA Business Journal last year. While Hankey was studying finance at USC, his father died and his family lost its stake in the car dealership, but a few years after Hankey's graduation, his family repurchased the dealership with a $250,000 loan. Yes, that would be Mr. Hankey, you are correct, Mogwai. And Helix got the same thing at the same time. Minus the delays, of course. After buying the dealership, Hankey courted buyers that other car sellers often rejected. Subprime borrowers, his dealership provided the loans. So he was probably one of the first buy here, pay here people. Unlike other car dealers, which typically turn to banks to provide financing for auto purchases. Hankey told the LA Business Journal his showroom was often filled with people arguing over terms they believed were unfavorable. We had beefs going on at the same time people coming in buying cars, Hankey said. But it all worked, and you wouldn't think that someone buying a car would hate to see someone else arguing about a payment, but it didn't seem to matter. Hankey expanded beyond auto dealerships when he realized there was demand for subprime auto loans outside of LA, according to the LA Business Journal. He incorporated Westlake Financial Services, which Forbes said now works with more than 30,000 car dealerships across the U.S., to provide auto loans to people with poor credit. Westlake is now part of the Hankey Group, which also oversees the other financial services companies, including Knight Insurance, the enterprise that provided Trump's bond. Well, I know that name too, by the way. Hankey told Bloomberg he voted for Trump, but said his support for the real estate developer didn't play into his decision to extend the bond. Yes, I voted for him in the past, but this is a business deal, and this is what we do, Hankey told the publication. I've never met Trump nor talked to him on the phone. Axis Bank, which is in which Hankey is one of the biggest non-institutional investors, provided the funding to refinance Trump Tower and took out a $100 million loan in 2022 when the Trump Organization's real estate valuations were under scrutiny due to the New York fraud case. Bloomberg reported Hankey told the publication he wasn't aware of the deal until after it was completed. So, that's who he is. I guess I didn't have to be that selective. I thought they were going to be a lot more doxy on this one. But I know it, especially with the subprime and this, like, they are trying to paint this guy as some sort of predator who's preying on people with bad credit, which he might be. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people are going to hate him, though, too, from this. We got to talk about the gag order, which I'm going to flip-flop these two around here real quick. Get rid of these ones. So we'll start with the one from NPC News. Judge expands partial gag order after Trump's attacks on his daughter in hush money case. From Adam Reese, Lisa Rubin, and Dara Gregorian. The judge presiding over Trump's impending New York criminal trial expanded a partial gag order Monday, following the former president's online attacks against his daughter. Now, interestingly enough, I don't think they actually say what it is that he said in this. But I'll talk about what he said. Oh, it does, like, way down, halfway down. They'll actually tell you how non-committal this actually is. But let's read from the top first. The judge presiding over Trump's impending New York criminal trial expanded a partial gag order Monday after following the former president's online attacks against his daughter. State Judge Juan Merchan said Trump is barred from attacking his family members and those of the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. In addition to the witnesses, prosecutors, court staff members, and their relatives, whom he is directed to refrain from talking about in a previous gag order issued last week. Trump's pattern of attacking family members of presiding jurists and attorneys assigned to his cases serves no legitimate purpose. It merely injects fear in those assigned or called to participate in the proceedings, that not only they, but their family members as well are fair game for the defendant's vitriol. Merchant said on Monday is no longer a mere possibility or a reasonable likelihood that there exists a threat to the integrity of the judicial proceedings. The threat is very real. Trump's actions, he wrote, could have a chilling effect on a case that's just 2 weeks from the trial start date. The average observer must now, after hearing the defendant's recent attacks, draw the conclusion that if they become involved in these proceedings, even tangentially, They should not worry not only for themselves, but for their loved ones as well. Such concerns will undoubtedly interfere with the fair administration of justice and constitutes a direct attack on the rule of law itself, Merchan wrote. So, and they go on to talk about the fact that he's abusing Merchan's daughter. But realistically, and a lot of the people who are going to read this article are going to read to maybe about this far and no further. Probably are not going to come down to here, where we found out Merchan's decision in August, refusing to step aside, noted that he had sought guidance from the State Court Systems Advisory Committee on Judicial Ethics over his daughter's employment. The committee found the DA's case did not involve either the judge's relatives or the relative's business. Whether directly or indirectly, they are not parties or likely witnesses in the matter, and none of the parties or counsel before the judge are clients of the business. We see nothing in the inquiry to suggest the outcome of the case could have any effect on the judge's relatives. The relatives' business or any of the interests. Now, here's where the conflict of interest is, though. That, again, NBC News buried a third of the way down the article because they don't want people to know about. Merchan's daughter has worked as president of Authentic Campaigns, a firm that Harris used for digital fundraising and advertising during her presidential campaign. The firm describes itself as a digital agency progressives can trust to get the job done right. Bragg's office contended that Trump's claim of constitutional right to levy personal attacks on family members is as disturbing as it is wrong. Merchan slapped Trump with a partial gag order last week, barring him from trashing witnesses, court staff members, and the families. The order did not mention Merchan or his family. Here's the shots, by the way, that Trump has taken. Maybe the judge is such a hater because his daughter makes money by working to get Trump. One of Trump's Truth Social posts said. He used her name in a separate post and another link to an article with pictures of the daughter. Now see, that I don't like. But it is fair to point out where the conflict of interest is. And there is a huge conflict of interest here. Another post accused the daughter of using a picture of Trump behind bars as her profile picture on an X account that Al Baker, a spokesperson for the State Office of Court Administration, said was not actually hers. Right. Baker recently said someone apparently recreated a version of the woman's shuttered account last year, which he called the manipulation of an account she long ago abandoned. The DA's office said Monday, filing, that Trump's attacks were based on the transparent falsehoods, but that the facts are beside the point for the defendant. It's not an attack. It is fair game to say, hey, the judge's daughter worked for the campaign of my political opponents. Can we do something about this? Can we get a different judge? I'd say that's fair game. Now, if he was saying, and this is part of the reason that I don't like the fact that he used the picture of the name, if he said, okay, this is the girl's name, this is where she works, this is what she looks like, then yeah, I would call that uncalled for. But pointing out the conflict of interest is not. That's not an attack. And if you take it as an attack, that probably means you have something to hide. Former Watergate prosecutor calls Trump gag order so unusual this never happens. From Bree Stimson. Nick Ackerman, a former Watergate prosecutor, said that in his 50-some years in law, he's never seen a gag order like the one imposed on former President Trump in his hush money payments case this week. Juan Merchan issued the gag order Tuesday following a request from Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. This is so unusual, Ackerman told CNN's Frederica Whitfield on Wednesday. This never happens in over 50 years of law practice, both as a persecutor and a defendant. He added, it's not done, and the reason it's not done is because once you start disparaging the judge, disparaging people in the courtroom, you're putting yourself in harm's way, because that's the judge that's going to sentence you. Ackerman added that Trump is the only one I've ever seen do this, and do it in such an outrageous way that's really forced the courts. To where does the First Amendment stop, and where do we need a gag order in order to protect the judicial system? Trump has even suggested the gag order is related to Merchan's adult daughter, work as the president of a political consulting firm, a Democrat political consulting firm. And from CNN on the same wavelength, he really pushes the boundaries, how Trump has challenged judges trying to rein him in. From Jeremy Herb and Kara Scannell. It took Trump less than 24 hours to test the boundaries of Merchan's gag order in his New York criminal trial. In 2 posts on Truth Social, the former president attacked Merchan for issuing the gag order, and he went after the judge's daughter for her liberal political work, exploiting the ambiguous language in the order that didn't explicitly forbid discussion of Merchan's family. 7.5 earthquake in Taiwan. Let's find out what's going on there. Breaking news 3 minutes ago from CNN. Breaking in right now. We'll go back to the Trump stuff in just a sec. Strong earthquake off the east coast of Taiwan. From Wayne Chang. That's all we get. A 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck off Taiwan's eastern coast Wednesday, according to Taiwan's Central Weather Administration. So, a prayer right now for the people in Taiwan. So yeah, it looks like there was a effect out to Japan, out onto the mainland, all the way down to Indonesia. Yeah, that was the big one right there. So, the thing to say with that is to the people on the coast of China, even though you're not allowed to listen to this because I say bad things about China, and to the people out on the coast of California and Hawaii, watch out for tsunamis. Because that was a big one right there. We'll either cover this later on in the week or on next Tuesday. Luke Wee has joined us over on the YouTube side. The Mogwai says, the earthquake doesn't worry me, it's the off the coast part. How so? On Monday, Merchan pushed back, expanding the gag order to cover his family, though the judge remains fair game for Trump in attempting to limit Trump's vitriol 2 weeks before the trial is set to begin. Look, I'm going to tell you right off the bat. If Merchan, and Merchan knows this by the way, he can shake his fist to make the gag order and everything else. If Merchan puts Donald Trump in a jail cell pre-trial, he wins election. Hands down, election's over. Especially, again, once it comes out where his daughter works. You'll have your diehards that are still going to say Biden or anybody but Trump. But that will officially be the government silencing a political opponent under threat of lawfare. And Don knows this. Don knows this full well. And that's why he's pushing the boundaries off of this. And the mainstream media, again, is working overtime to prevent people from knowing about the fact that this girl was a consultant for Kamala Harris's campaign. In other Trump news, Trump posts video with an image of a hogtied Biden drawing a rebuke from Democrats' campaign. From the Washington, no author given. Presumptive nominee Trump drew criticism Friday for posting a video on social media that contains the image of a hog-tied Biden painted on the tailgate of a passing truck. The Biden campaign was quick to condemn the video for suggesting physical harm to the sitting Democratic president. Biden has portrayed the likely 2024 opponent as someone who freely evokes Nazi imagery with regard to immigrants, while also stressing the speeches Trump's efforts to overturn his loss in 2020 ultimately led to the honk honk selfie fest at the Capitol. Trump is regularly inciting political violence. It's time people take him seriously. Just ask the Capitol police officers who were attacked protecting our hegemony on January 6th, said Michael Tyler, the Biden campaign's communications director. Trump campaign spokesman Stephen Chung responded Friday night that picture was on the back of the pickup truck that was traveling down the highway. Democrats and crazed lunatics have not only called for the despicable violence against Trump and his family, they're actually weaponizing the justice system against him. I have seen the image. I have not seen the video, but I have seen the image. So I've got two for this. Number one, to the person who put this wrap on the back of his truck, that was tremendously stupid. And you should not have done that. In a position, in a country where lawfare is being used against people who go against the regime, you should not be going out and giving them an invitation to put you in jail. That's to the right side. To the left side, I'm going to tell you this. You are doing yourself no favors by calling attention to this right now, because everybody remembers the Kathy Griffin head, the Madonna blow up the White House remarks, the Snoop Dogg shoot the Trump video. Everybody remembers that. These people have posted a license plate, which was a vanity plate that actually it's Trump related. I'm not going to put the number out there. I'm not going to be disgusting like these people. But it's a vanity plate and it's Trump related. And people could go easily look up the address on this and go start violence against this person's house. But it's fair game because you called for execution, death, murder. Even now, as they yell for a revocation of Secret Service. That's because they want somebody to assassinate him. And you should, again, as Democrats, you should not be drawing attention to something like this. Because everybody fucking remembers. From the New York Post, Jon Stewart mocks MSDNC's refusal to show the disturbing hog-tied Biden decal. From Alexandra Steigrad, The Daily Show host Jon Stewart ripped MSDNC on Monday for refusing to show disturbing footage of the pickup truck that displayed the decal on its tailgate that depicted Biden hogtied. This weekend, there was one story so disturbing, so dark, even the news couldn't handle it, Stewart said on the show before playing the mashup of MSDNC hosts, including Ali Velshi and Katie Fang, who refused to show the violent, dehumanizing imagery on air due to its disturbing nature. It wasn't that disturbing. After the clips played, the host declining to show the decal, Stewart said, "This has got to be devastating. News channels show images from Ukraine, from Gaza, from natural disasters. They get through them dispassionately. I can't imagine how devastating the footage must be." And it was that. Stewart then finally played the footage, which showed the cartoonish giant sticker depicting Biden hogtied in the back of a truck. That's what's so disturbing and dehumanizing you wouldn't show it on television, said an incredulous Stewart. An airbrushed Biden decal on the back of a truck. Aren't you the same networks that show reruns of 9/11 every year? I mean, I don't think it's great that Trump was posting things like this, but it's not like people really think Biden was tied up in the back of the truck. No, but he's a religious icon. You have to remember. It's just like when you can't paint an image of Muhammad. That's a religious icon that they're doing that. But that is what they have for that. All right, and we have on the ground stuff right now. Trump turns attention to Michigan and Wisconsin, the blue wall states that he won and then lost. Yeah, he's going to be spending a lot of time here, I think. From Steve Contomo, Kristen Holmes, and Elena Treen. Dual Helix is well, he's got very vocal about this over on the Rumble side. The former president scheduled to first appear in Grand Rapids, where he's expected to deliver remarks about the U.S.-Mexico border. From there, Trump will travel to Green Bay, Wisconsin for his first rally in the Badger State since launching his third White House bid. The visits come amid a notable lull in Trump's campaign activity in the weeks since he became the presumptive nominee. Trump has also held 2 campaign events since Super Tuesday, while at the same time period he's seen a surge in political activity from President Biden, including his own stops. In Michigan and Wisconsin, Trump meanwhile has unleashed a flurry of social media posts in recent weeks, attacking his Democrat rival and the judges and prosecutors overseeing the various legal cases against the former president. Along with Pennsylvania, Trump's stunning 2016 victories in Michigan and Wisconsin produced a seismic crack in the so-called blue wall the state's Democrats had relied on every election going back to 1992. Trump's particular success with blue-collar voters gave Republicans optimism for a political realignment that could turn the Rust Belt red for the foreseeable future. Instead, Republicans have struggled to replicate Trump's initial success in subsequent elections, including in 20 when Biden narrowly won all 3 states en route to victory. Democrats in that time also took over the governor's offices in Michigan and Wisconsin and flipped a Senate seat in Pennsylvania in 2022 that proved crucial to maintaining control of the chamber. So, he should be. The primary's over. And Trump should not be going down into states that are going down the list in primaries, hunting for primary votes. I mean, our primary was this today, actually, and all the candidates on the ballot were irrelevant because Trump and Biden have already clinched the delegate count. But outright, yes, he should be out there campaigning, getting people out. Honestly, I would say he probably should have been here last week, driving people to go to the polls for, there was, in our state, an amendment to get overturn Citizens United, an amendment to force that only certified government election workers can oversee elections. And I voted no on both of those. So yeah, he should have been here last week at this point, but the union vote carried Trump in 2016. And the Democrats again have turned their back on the blue-collar side of the union vote, instead trying to make a mockery of it and trying to turn Starbucks workers into union workers. While the Democrat Party was busy saying those jobs are never going to come back and we're just going to do manufacturing everywhere else, the Donald said, I will bring your jobs back. And he did a lot of that. Until honk honk, certain medical things happened at the end of 2019 into 2020 that changed the landscape of work. But yes, he should be in these Democrat-run states talking to union workers who by and large still support him to this day. RFK getting into this one. Benny Johnson says, when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think he's equal to Biden? RFK Jr. Biden is so much worse, a threat to democracy. President Biden is the first president in history that's used the federal agencies to censor political speech. Let's listen.
But do you really believe that when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court that shows that he started censoring not just me. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest threat to democracy is not somebody who questions election returns, but a president of the United States who used the power of his office to force the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to open a portal and give access to that portal to the FBI, to the CIA, to the IRS, to CISA, to NIH, to censor his political critics. President Biden, for the first president in history, to use his power over the Secret Service to deny Secret Service protection to one of his political opponents for political reasons. He's weaponizing the federal agencies. Those are really critical threats
Donald
to democracy.
Trump, of course.
And he's right. I can't believe I just said that about a Kennedy, but he is right about Biden. And it's the economy. It's been the censorship. The January 6th thing made people legitimately afraid to go out and redress their grievances against the government. I mean, obviously dual helix is not, but the average American who just wants to carve out the middle class in suburbia and have 2.5 kids and send them out to a decent school and feel strongly against this administration is afraid because they think if they speak out, they'll have the FBI kicking down their door. If they share the wrong meme on Facebook, they'll have the FBI kicking down their door. They're absolutely right to be afraid of that too. But we also have Hill Dog telling us how out of touch she actually is. From the Daily Wire, Hillary Clinton has just 3 words of advice for voters disappointed in Trump-Biden rematch. From Virginia Kruta, and we will listen to those. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton offered just 3 words of advice to voters who are disappointed by the idea of a 2024 rematch between Biden and Trump. I'm not even going to quote her. Let's listen.
But it's Biden versus Trump. We
Yes,
know that.
It is.
What do you say to voters who are upset that those are the 2 choices?
Get over yourself. Those are the 2 choices.
Yeah, love that.
Right? And
good.
you know, it's kind of like one is old and effective and compassionate, has a heart, and really cares about people, and one is old and has been charged with 91 felonies.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Okay. Interesting.
I don't understand why this is even a hard choice, really. I
Yeah.
don't understand it.
Yeah.
But we have to go through the election, and hopefully people will realize what's at stake because it's an existential question. What kind of country we're going to have, what kind of democracy we're going to have. And people who blow that off are not paying attention because it's not like Trump, his enablers, his empowerers, his allies are not telling us what they want to do. I mean, they're pretty clear about what kind of country they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Get out there and vote.
That's completely out of touch. We've got Hillary Clinton coming out here saying, hey, vote for the people we tell you to and shut the fuck up. Stop complaining. We will put the corporate neoliberal in front of you, and you will vote for him, or you will pay the consequences. That's what she's saying right there. All right. That's enough out of them. A couple more stories here. We will finish up tonight and then go on to things I like and things that I hate. South Carolina in the news this week because South Carolina is to use unconstitutional congressional map after Supreme Court silence. From Christine Zhu. No, not the other word, YouTube, or Helix. South Carolina will use a congressional map a federal court ruled was unconstitutional in this year's election, following uncertainty around the timing of the Supreme Court's review of a district that a lower court deemed was racially gerrymandered. Republican lawmakers shuffled thousands of black voters out of the state's 1st district, represented by Nancy Mace, to make the Charleston area district more reliably red. The state NAACP. Why is that so hard to say? Sued, arguing the legislature's action was unconstitutionally discriminatory. The Supreme Court heard the case Alexander versus South Carolina Conference of the NAACP in October, which tests the legal limits of a partisan gerrymandering when it intersects with race, Politico previously reported. The conservative majority seemed likely to side with the South Carolina Republican lawmakers and allow the map to stand. The same panel of lower court judges that initially found it unconstitutional said in an order on Thursday the state would use the map for this year's election ahead of the congressional primaries. On June 11th, the deadline to send military and overseas absentee ballots is April 27th. As a result, it's plainly impractical for the court to wait on a higher judicial decision, the judges wrote in the order. So, this has been something that's just pissed me off from the beginning. If you want to change the maps, then win. That's the way that I've always said, especially when it gets to be close to a census year. But when one side starts to get maps they don't like because they didn't win, they want to go back and use the court to go back and overturn that so they can get a win without getting a win. And we've been seeing this time and time again. And I love it when they use the word gerrymander, which is actually a general term for reshaping the map. But gerrymandering has a negative connotation. It's evil when Republicans do it. But when Democrats do it, it's just fine. Jeez. Helix, why don't you tell us how you really feel? But it all comes down again to Nancy Mace, which a lot of people are trying to district back out because she's a Trump supporter. A federal court ruled that the Charleston area district held by Nancy Mace was unlawfully redrawn by removing thousands of black voters. But on Thursday, the same court said in an order that the map could be used for this year's congressional election. The three-judge panel wrote that with the primary election procedures rapidly approaching, the appeal before the Supreme Court is still pending with no remedial plan in place. The ideal must bend to the practical. I don't know why the judiciary is getting into this at all. But they have to come back and do that. Because they have to try to use the powers that be against them. Chuck Schumer getting into the news this week. Chuck Schumer announces Senate will consider legislative options to end judge shopping. Oh, really? From Daniel Chayton. Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer said on Monday the Senate will consider legislative options after a federal court in Texas rejected a guidance against the so-called practice of judge shopping. The top Democrat issued a post to X that bemoaned how the Northern District of Texas decided to keep allowing the odious practice after it rejected guidelines from the Judicial Conference of the United States. Charles U. Schumer, my brother, listen to me very closely. Stop. Your people will be negatively affected by this if you go through with this. Stop what you're doing. Take the L. Walk away from this. Quickly. There has been more judge shopping by Democrats. They do everything they can to get anything through the Ninth Circuit. Stop. Pay attention. Walk away. Read the room. But he's got the speech to go with it. Judge shopping has been abused by right-wing activists to subvert the will of the people, Schumer said. The Senate will consider legislative options to put an end to this misguided practice. You're going to be sorry. I'm telling you. The Judicial Conference of the U.S., which works on policy for the federal court system, unveiled last month an amended policy that seeks to promote a district-wide random selection for judges. Judge Robert Conrad Jr., Secretary of the Conference, said the policy promotes impartiality of proceedings and bolsters public confidence in the federal judiciary. Senate Democrats had singled out the Northern District of Texas as an egregious example via flawed and chaotic rulings on abortion access, LGBTQIRA, MIGI, XTBY, AEIOU, sometimes Y protections, legal immigration, and climate legislation. But on Friday, Chief U.S. District Judge David Godbee wrote to Schumer announcing that the consensus in his Texas district was not to make any change to our case assignment process at this time. Republicans in the Senate and the Judicial Conference guidance amounted to mere suggestions and stressed how the U.S. Constitution empowers Congress with the sole authority to determine the structure of the lower courts. Well, it is going to be a little difficult for you because of the way that the courts got refiled under Mitch McConnell. But again, I'm warning you, your people use this more than Republicans do. Both sides do it, by the way. I'm not going to deny the fact that Republicans judge shop. But your people do it more. Another instance of these people are not on your side. From the Hill, Johnson says Ukraine aid will come up right after recess and will include some innovations. That's right. The person who was put into place to make sure that you didn't have to throw more taxpayer money at the Ukraine is going to throw more taxpayer money at the Ukraine. Aren't you excited? From Sarah Fortinsky. Mike Johnson said Sunday he expects to move a package including aid for Ukraine with some important innovations when the House returns from recess. In an interview on Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy, Johnson stressed the difficult position he's in with a historically narrow House majority, but he said he was working throughout the current work period to come up with a package and plans to put it to the floor when the House gavels back into session. Look, what we have to do in an era of divided government, historically as we are, you got to build consensus if we want to move a partisan measure. I got to have every single member, literally, Johnson said, and some things need to be bipartisan. So, there you go. Johnson also mentioned the Repo Act for Ukraine, which would authorize the president to seize Russian sovereign assets from frozen in the U.S. and give them to Ukraine to use against Russia. Because we want to start World War III with fucking Russia. The Repo Act, we can use the seized assets of Russian oligarchs to allow the Ukrainians to fight them. That's just pure poetry, Johnson said. Even Trump has talked about the loan concept, where we're not just giving foreign aid, we're setting it up in a relationship where they can provide it back to us when the time is right, which will be never, just so you know. And the last one we have today, going back to foreign news, speaking of the Ukraine, from the BBC. Israel accused of deadly strike in Iranian consulate in Syria. From Jeremy Bowen, international editor, and David Gritton. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says 7 officers have been killed in an Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate building in Syria's capital, Damascus. But don't worry, this whole thing is about self-defense. Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahidi, a senior commander for the elite Quds force, and Brigadier General Mohammad Haji Rahimi, his deputy, were named among the dead. Iran and Syria's governments condemned the attack, which destroyed a building next door to the Iranian embassy. The Israeli military said it did not comment on foreign media reports. However, it's acknowledged that carrying out hundreds of strikes in recent years on targets in Syria that it says are linked to Iran and allied groups, which are armed, funded, and trained by the Revolutionary Guards. The Israeli strikes have reportedly been stepped up since the start of the war with Gaza in October last year, in response to cross-border attacks on northern Israel by Hezbollah and other Iran-backed groups in Lebanon and Syria. But Monday's attack will be seen as a serious escalation. The Israelis appear to be testing the resolve of Iranians and their allies and signaling they are serious about increasing pressure on their enemies. Why? Why did it have to be Israel and Persia, of all places? The Israelis are looking at the fact that both Iran and Hezbollah have not been pushing as hard as some might expect. Now they will see if Iran and Hezbollah are going to push back. There will be a response, but it may not be the one people expect. Rather than missiles, it may be some sort of cyber attack. Well, we'll see. Also in Gaza, an Israeli airstrike hits a Gaza hospital tent camp, killing 2 Palestinians and hurting journalists. Look, you lost the optics war. You're getting to the point where I'm saying, hey, let's slow this down. Hey, maybe it's time for Gaza to come back out and do some striking back if possible. This should have been done before Christmas. If that. Because now you're going after the wounded and women and children, which Hamas has historically hid behind. That's why I didn't condemn the attacks that started in the beginning of October and in November and December. I didn't condemn that stuff, but by the time we were getting to the new year, it's time to go back and pipe it down just a little bit. An Israeli airstrike hit a tent camp in the courtyard of a crowded hospital in central Gaza on Sunday, killing 2 Palestinians and wounding another 15, including journalists working nearby. An AP reporter filmed the strike in aftermath at the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, where thousands of people have sheltered after fleeing their homes elsewhere in the war-ravaged territory. People, including women and children, scattered and cried out. The Israeli military said it struck a command center of the Islamic Jihad militant group and claimed the hospital's functioning was not affected. Hey, guys, can we get a negotiator in here to try to do something about this? Maybe somebody who's conducted business in this region of the world, and regions of the world similar. Because we got to do something else. Again, with Israel, okay, you've had your fun. We get it. You're pissed, and you were pissed. But it's time to go back and do something else. I've got a feeling that we will have some boots on the ground at some point in this conflict before November. We'll have to wait and see. Aren't you excited? All right, and with that, we are done with the news, but I've got a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate for the day, and we'll be done. No Thursday show for us this week, unfortunately. Sorry, Mogwai. But we're going to start today with, of course, the rules of acquisition. We're almost done. We're almost there. A good one for management. Although one you probably shouldn't take out in real life because in a very competitive marketplace as it is, it's a very, very hard time to not pay people. Maybe we should just leave this one in the dustbin, but we're going to talk about it here. The 291st Rule of Acquisition, the commandments of the Ferengi religion for the fictitious hyper-capitalistic race in Star Trek, which, if you follow these to the letter, gives you more social capital and allows you to bid for a better life when you die and go to the Divine Treasury afterwards. Every week we go over one of these rules. We talk about what it means in the show, whether or not we can use it in real life, which in this one I would say probably not, and how it was used by the Ferengi. The 291st Rule of Acquisition says the less employees know about the cash flow, the smaller the share they can demand. Now, realistically, when you are an employer, you are buying labor, which is worth a certain amount. You are buying labor from your employees. And in any situation, especially if you are trying to buy something, you do want to put yourself on the position of you can't afford to go back out and run out and spend massive amounts of money. That is a smart move to go back in. But again, when we're sitting here looking at a hyper-competitive job market where people are still trying to get the top of the top and the best of the best out there, then yes, we do need to pay attention to the fact that you still need to pay your people. And unfortunately right now, you do need to pay them well, otherwise there's somebody out there that will. So, in theory, it's actually a good idea. But keep in mind, if somebody has bigger pockets out there, they'll flash the cash around and take your employees away. So keep that in the back of your head as you follow the 291st Rule of Acquisition. Let's do a couple things I like and a few things that I hate. Things that I like. Starting with my media for the week, which we did 3 pieces of media last week because we did 3 shows. So I am going to come out and we'll talk about the video games I've been playing. Now, those of you know I've been playing Final Fantasy X on stream and Fallout 4 on stream. I've been doing both of those and enjoying both of those very, very much. But you don't know what I do off stream, which realistically I don't, especially as on the run as I was last week, I don't do a lot of either of those off screen. But I have been playing on my DS Lite, which has a Game Boy Advance port, the upgraded graphics version of the original Pokemon games. I have Leaf Green, but they also came out with Fire Red. So with the wild success of Pokemon and the nostalgia of everything, and of course people wanting to go back with the original adventure but with the new stuff, around the 3rd generation of Pokemon, Game Freak and Nintendo came out and said, hey, well, let's upgrade this, let's do this, let's retell the story again, but let's use our new graphics, our new technology and everything else. So, and I played, I was probably a little bit old for the original Pokemon when it first came out. Because, what was I, 14 at the time when it came? I was 13 when it came out, but I didn't get into it for another year after that. But I played the original. I played the blue version of the original. I had all 3, red, blue, and yellow, and traded amongst them with myself. I got a second Game Boy and the transfer cable. And I did get all 150. And And I never did finish the gold and the silver. I started gold and silver, and I did finish the game, but I didn't do the collect all 250 version of that part of the game. And then it just kind of fell off because I was getting older, I was working a lot more, going off to college, and I never got a chance to go back out and finish. Well, it is still hard for me to go back out and finish with doing this and working and everything else. And I've been playing for probably, I think I started right after I moved here. So I've been playing for a little over a year. In Leaf Green. So I give you, without further ado, the official E3 2004 trailer for Fire Red and Leaf Green. A wordless trailer, of course, but some of the upgrades were better graphics, using a wireless connector to go back and trade with your friends, which I don't know anybody that's got a Game Boy Advance, so I don't have anybody to trade with, but you've got the wireless adapter for that, which worked off Bluetooth, I believe, for the GBA. Of course, again, with the DS, I don't have that option either, or DS Lite, I should say. And a changed moveset to reflect the fact that this was Generation 3, not Generation 1, on top of the fact they also added in a post-game add-on that brought some of the Gen 2 and Gen 3 Pokemon into the fold as well. So it's an enjoyable one, and if you are nostalgic, if you remember way back when you liked the games when you were younger, I do recommend grabbing the third generation upgrades to them. It was an enjoyable time. I don't regret doing it for the least. It's taken forever, but realistically, I've actually only got 33 hours into the game to show you how little I get to play. 33 hours across over a year. But it's definitely enjoyable. Definitely recommended. If you've got a chance, if you've got the hardware, do so. Don't emulate it because that would be illegal. Unless you own it, of course. But give it a go. Other things that I like. So we talked a little bit last week about Ron DeSantis telling us how bad squatting was, which it is. I don't believe in squatting, but there's been a movement to squat in other people's houses and then do a minimal amount of material upgrade to them so you can say that you own them now and have the law on your side. Well, a lot of this has been led by a Venezuelan migrant trying to teach people to take advantage of the system and do this. Well, he went out on TikTok and got very public by going out and doing this, telling people how to game the system and steal from other people. But see, the thing is, and this is the same thing with other illegal migrants who feel that they can't complain about low wages or poor working conditions or everything else, the reason they can't do that is because that means that they will get caught. And that's what this guy did. From the Mail Online, Venezuelan migrant Lionel Moreno was finally arrested by ICE in Ohio after sparking fury with TikTok videos sharing squatting tips on how to invade homes. Pro tip, you guys. If you are breaking the law, openly breaking the law, and you don't want to get caught and deported, especially if it's immigration law, then don't be public. Fugitive Venezuelan migrant Lionel Moreno has finally been arrested by ICE after almost 2 years on the run. The 27-year-old was picked up in Columbus, Ohio, and is now in federal custody, Fox's Bill Malugan reports. Moreno has been hunted by ICE since he crossed the border illegally at Eagle Pass in 2022. He was released as part of the Alternatives to Detention program, which lets migrants on parole go free, while officials track them until their next court date. Moreno was due in court in Miami in November 2022, but he never showed up. But he's going to show up now. Again, if you're doing something illegal and you don't want to get caught, don't be public, you moron. Alright, let's do a few things that I hate. From NBC News, Oregon criminalizes small amounts of hard drugs after 2022 voter initiative is overturned. Suddenly making people who thought that they were safe forever. In a liberal state on top of this. Criminals again. From Alicia Victoria Lozano. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek signed a bill on Monday restoring criminal penalties for possessing small amounts of hard drugs, reversing a first-in-the-nation law that advocates had hoped would help quell a deepening addiction and overdose crisis. Under the new law, possession of small amounts of drugs such as heroin or meth will be classified as a misdemeanor and punishable by up to 6 months in jail. Drug treatment will be offered as an alternative to criminal penalties. Ensuring full coordination between state and participating agencies such as the criminal justice system and health providers is vital to the law's success, Kotek said in a letter to the state legislature. Courts, Oregon State Police, local law enforcement, defense attorneys, district attorneys, and local behavioral health providers are all critical to these conversations and necessary partners to achieve the vision for this legislation. The letter read in part, "We must balance local programming design with the need to achieve statewide consistency and standardization where appropriate." Now, did I think this was going to last long? No. Did I think it was going to go this quickly? No. But I did not think this was going to stay forever. The U.S. has too much money invested in the war on drugs and getting people hooked and then using them as forced labor and cudgels for long periods of time. I'm surprised the Democrat had the balls to go back and do this, though, too. That blows my mind. I've always said, if you're not hurting anybody else, what you put in your body is your own business. Again, I will stand from the sidelines and say that you're a moron for doing heroin. That's a stupid thing to do. But it's your own business. Natural selection will take care of itself at some point. And when it's criminal, it's much harder to get treatment once you do get addicted on some of these substances, which are highly addictive. I think this is a bad idea, and I think this is going to backfire. I think they went the right direction, just with some of the wrong ways to do that. But the other side of things, it's something we see often, especially in the first few states, when Colorado was the first one to overturn the weed, and in other states where they start to switch it over to recreational, like Minnesota, is that you get a lot of people either going there or who live there who are just overdoing it because they can for the first time. It's the same thing when a college girl turns 21 for the first time and borders on alcohol poisoning when she's done on that 21st birthday. Once you finally can do it and do it out in the open, you just want to go blow it in everybody's face. And I said the same thing. Like, I've got the neoconservative cousin that I cite occasionally, who I pointed out, who's told me that, yeah, we need to go back and make the weed legal and then go tax it to almost oblivion, which I don't agree with. I think it just should be legal and that should be the end of it. I don't think the state should have any say on where it's sold, when it's sold, etc. Don't let 18-year-olds, or I'm sorry, 19 or 17-year-olds get it. 17 or younger get it. Keep it out of their hands. But we don't need to tax it out to death either. But when you do take the argument of tax it to death, it's usually on the basis of people are going to come back out and do it. Because they can. They can go blow that smoke in the cop's face and there's nothing he can do about it. And you can tax that. if you're in a bracket who agrees with taxation, which I am not. But with everything being legal in Oregon, we had a lot of people who were just getting hooked on heroin and meth over and over again because they had the opportunity for the first time and they were definitely overdoing it. So, that is what's happening in Oregon. Mike Pence doing Mike Pence things. From the Daily Wire, Pence, Israel has no choice but to invade Rafah. Thank you, Mike Pence. I don't need to read any more of this. We know what he's going to say. Go to war. You are the holy people. Take out the Palestinians. Take out the brown people. I believe in you because the Bible told me to believe in you. This is the reason that I'm not a Republican, right there. I got one here from NBC News. They came from Florida sun and sand. They got soaring costs and a culture war. Shannon Petty piece talking about people who migrated to Florida and then wondered why everything got so much more expensive. One of the first signs Barb Carter's move to Florida wasn't the postcard life she'd envisioned, was the armadillo infestation in her home that caused $9,000 in damages. Then came a hurricane, ever-present feuding over politics, and an inability to find a doctor to remove a tumor from her liver. After a year in the Sunshine State, Carter packed her car with whatever belongings she could fit and headed back to Kansas, selling her Florida home at a $40,000 loss and leaving behind children and grandchildren she'd moved to be closer to. So many people ask, would you move back to Kansas? I'll tell them the same thing. You've got to take your vacation goggles off, Carter said. For me, it was very falsely promoted once living there. I thought, this isn't all you guys have cracked this up to be at all. Florida has had a population boom over the past several years with more than 700,000 people moving there in 2022. It was the second fastest growing state as of July 2023 according to the Census Bureau. While there are some indications that migration to the state has slowed from its pandemic highs, only Texas saw more one-way U-Haul moves into the state than Florida last year. Mortgage application data indicated there were nearly 2 home buyers moving to Florida for every one leaving, according to data analytics from CoreLogic. While hundreds of thousands of new residents flocked to the state on the promise of beautiful weather, no income tax, and lower costs, nearly 500,000 left in 2022. According to the most recent census data, contributing to the move was the perfect storm of soaring insurance costs, a hostile political environment, worsening traffic, extreme weather, according to interviews with more than a dozen recent transplants, and longtime residents who left the state in the past 2 years. So the reason I put this on things that I hate has to do with a lot of what this was to begin with. Now, I have a friend who desperately wants to go back and move to Florida, and I know that I know the reason she hasn't done it yet is because she can't afford to go find anything because there's so many people who are going there, either to enjoy the Republican governance or because it is supposed to be this infinite vacation. And I know people who have left there because they realize it's not an infinite vacation. Again, you've got different critters down there than you have anywhere else in the country. The gators, the quicksand. And then every year, you have at least one tropical storm, if not a hurricane, takes out a major population center in your state. Yeah, it's nice while it's there because it's warm all year round and you don't have to deal with the snow and everything if you want to go back and be a snowbird, but there's a little bit of a reason that a lot of these snowbirds keep their residencies in their states of origin as well and just go down there for the winter. It's a nice place to visit. And again, I know people who have lived there long term, including friend of the show John of the Porch Boys, who I went down to visit. But as Republican as it is, it's not what it's cracked up to be. And when you've got this many people trying to clutch over a piece of Ron DeSantis' kingdom, then yes, your insurance costs are going to go up because people are going to go back down there to try to take advantage of the insurance as it goes, and the housing market is going to go up because there's a huge demand for the buildings that are already there. And I don't know if there's a lot of room to build anymore, as much of that state is swamp. I don't know the engineering or the architectural aspect of it, but I would believe that you probably can't build a lot more there at this point. I'm going to do this one, and then we'll go on to the last thing that I hate, which is a big one. Let's grab the one from Axios. House Republicans push to remain Dulles Airport after Trump. Because that's exactly what we need in this election cycle. Let him at least finish out his second term or see if he's going to get one or not. From Andrew Solender. A group of House Republicans, led by a member of the GOP leadership, is introducing a bill to rename Dulles after former President Trump. It's a display of deference many congressional Republicans have for the presumptive nominee. The two-page bill seeks to rename the airport to the Donald J. Trump International Airport and require all government documents to refer to it as such. The airport is currently named for John Foster Dulles, a former Secretary of State under Eisenhower, who fought against communism during the early stages of the Cold War. The proposal is sure to get a resounding pushback from Democrats in the House, sure to get a vote to the floor, a risk given Republicans' razor-thin majority. Trump is facing 9-1 felony charges because that's all they have here, said Jerry Connolly, who represents that district. Jamie Raskin says if they name it after Trump, there would be continued round-trip service to Moscow. Oh, he's a Russian agent! Ha 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 ha! Oh, I get it! Don Beyer, also of Virginia, pointed to detentions that took place at Dulles after Trump implemented his famous Muslim ban shortly after taking office in 2017, which did not happen. I'm not opposed to naming federal buildings, such as an international airport, after the Donald. Doing it at the one closest to DC kind of tells me you're just trying to give the middle finger out to people, which is one of the things I'm not terribly crazy about. But, and again, this should be an honor for once the person's out of politics, possibly dead and gone already. And I would want to see what he would do in a second term to try to cement something like that. I think there are going to be buildings named after him in the future. I don't think it's going to be until after he's dead. And I don't think it's going to be Dulles. I think the Beltway DC majority is going to fight tooth and nail to prevent that. And the last thing that I hate, the Nickelodeon thing. So this is just one instance that hasn't been as widely publicized. But there is so much on this right now. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of my experience with this as well. Because most of the Dan Schneider stuff happened after I was, again, aged out of the bracket that would have been targeted by this. So we'll read here, former Nickelodeon star says she was forced to kiss a 30-year-old man as a teen on the show. From Katie Jerkovich. Former Nick star Ally D'Amico said she was forced to kiss a 30-year-old man as a teen on her show in light of the new docuseries Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, which alleges abuse and toxic work environment behind the scenes of the network. D'Amico, who was part of the Naked Brothers Band show from 07-09, took to TikTok over the weekend and shared her experience at the network after watching the new, and by many accounts, disturbing documentary The Hollywood Reporter noted. D'Amico said she was stressed while watching the series, revealing that she went through the trauma on the show after her teenage character, Rosalina, had a brief romance with a French character named Michel, played by Jake Herzog. There was an episode where Rosalina cheated on Nat and kissed a French guy, D'Amico said, noting that she didn't want to kiss this greasy-ass man. He is a 30-year-old man, she added. I'm sorry, I couldn't even watch it. It gave me fucking the ick, and it honestly gives me PTSD. I'm watching this Quiet on the Set documentary. It's talking about how integral and vital it is to create, especially when it's a kids cast, to create an environment where kids feel comfortable to say no or I don't feel comfortable with this. D'Amico continued, and I'm like, yeah, maybe they do express that, though. It's also important to create an environment that listens to the kids that actually does not make them do things they don't want to do. D'Amico went on to talk about how they made her kiss this 30-plus-year-old man when I was like 14 or 15, not once, but multiple times. So, with the Schneider thing, Schneider was first coming out of the scene. I believe he was involved in All That, which would have been my first experience with that because that was where I was the target audience. But went on then to create the Amanda Show, which also would have been about the same time I would have been the target audience. Amanda Bynes is, I think, within a year or two of my age. I think she's a touch older than me, if I remember correctly. I can imagine sitting here at a piece of technology where I can get any piece of information in the world at a moment's notice. And saying, I don't think I know this. No, she's actually a little younger than me. I thought she was like maybe a year and a half, 2 years older than me. No, she's a touch younger than me. 38 years old. 1986. I was born in 84. So it's actually technically not 38 yet, not till tomorrow. Hey, everybody say happy birthday to Amanda Bynes tomorrow. But going back to what I was saying with that is that would have been the first Schneider show where I would have been in the age group it was directed at. I was probably at the time starting to get ready to age out of this. So, like, after turning 18, working in a grocery store after I moved away from home, I'd heard things about Drake and Josh, but it wasn't something that, obviously was really targeted for me. I was 20. I know that some of the girls I've dated when I was much, much younger, who were closer to that age bracket, still would watch this kind of stuff when they got into the 18, 19 years old age bracket. But, I mean, at the time, it was expected you'd be more grown up and look into things like 90210 or things like that when you basically passed the age of 16. You were supposed to be done with things like the Amanda Show by that point. Some of the infantilization of our society shortly after I came of age. But one of the things that I had started to do, and I talked a bit about this, I had been introduced to iCarly and Victorious while I was dating a second grade teacher who would come home and watch the episode so she knew what her kids in her class were talking about. So I knew about some of the later Schneider ones, and I admit it was weird to me to see a 13-year-old girl talking to a bra on screen. But I didn't think too much of it because I didn't watch too much of it at the time. Just when Cheryl came over was the only real time that I ever caught any of it. But just recently, I started to look back, and a lot of the stuff has been coming out prior to this, prior to the documentary coming out. The news was out there, people were talking about it, Dan Schneider getting released from Nickelodeon on allegations, and Drake Bell coming out and admitting to what it is that happened. I'd started looking at some of the Schneider shows, some of the ones that were maybe out when I was too old to be the target audience for them anymore, and looking at them at an adult perspective, that was one of the things I wanted to see, was like, was this really as obvious as people said it was, that parents should have noticed something like this? And honestly, I kind of think it was. I mean, I'm looking at some of the jokes that were in Victorious was the bad one. That was a bad one. I don't know how parents didn't look at that and realize that this was not something that should have been consumed by anyone, really, but especially not impressionable kids. But it feels like a lot of this is coming out to a head now. And people are only accepting it because it's popular. And they maybe wanted to ignore it at the time because it wasn't popular. Because they wanted to believe that these kids were going to have a shot and they were going to be influential in this and that and the next thing. So, I mean, I'm glad that some of this is coming to the light, but I hate the fact that it actually happened. I know before this major documentary came out, one of the child stars that was on one of the shows, God, I can't think of her name right now, Alexa Nichols, I think it is, was working to try to expose this before this documentary came out and just being met with deplatforming and silencing and things like that. So I'm glad some of this is coming out to the light. I hate the fact that it happened. That's why I put this on things that I hate. And I hate the fact that so many kids were exposed to it. That was the part that really got me, is just how much exposure there was to this. And that is that. That's what we have here. All right, let's throw some outro music up and let's head out of here for the night. It was a long one here. Actually, we're a little bit under what we have been over the last week, so... Sorry, Mogwai, no Thursday show tonight, but you'll have to catch the replay, which I will put up tonight, so it'll be up for distribution tomorrow. All right, and on that dark note, we're out of here for the night. So, thank you everybody who came by, hung out, chatted in the live chat, and gave some very, very, very powerful opinions in the live chat. Dual Helix, I'm looking at you. I'll be back here tomorrow night, and we're going to go back to doing some Final Fantasy X. Seeing if we can work out and finish up how that goes. I know it's been a couple weeks for that, but got to finish it up because I've got more games I want to play for you guys. And I know that they made that deliberate roadblock in there, but I do want to finish it up. I got to see the end. So we'll be doing that. And Fall-Up Fridays as well coming up this coming Friday. We don't have to do extra shows this week, so we can actually take some time and have some fun. It'll be a fantastic time, and we will see you here for that. Otherwise, we'll be back here on Tuesday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. We'll probably be talking about Taiwan, especially if that is that big of an earthquake, and seeing if there was any additional damage that comes to the rest of the world because of that. Tsunamis, tidal waves, tropical storms, etc. So watch out for that. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Thank you everybody for watching. Stick around if you're on Twitch as we go back to go find somebody to raid. Thank you again. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.